Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Peter Tabuns. I'm the Ontario NDP Critic for the Environment, the MPP for Toronto-Danforth. I'm joined on stage today by Laura Walton, President of the Ontario Federation of Labour, and my MPP colleagues, Chandra Pasma, Lise Bourgeois, and France Gelina. The world's getting hotter, and workers are increasingly exposed to conditions that threaten their health and even their lives. They deserve protection, and this government is not providing it. Along with my colleagues, we've been working with the OFL to develop a legal framework for protection from heat stress in the workplace. That will be reintroduced as a bill today, the Heat Stress Act. Extreme heat on the job can result in death, illness, and absence from work, as well as increasing workplace injuries because people can have difficulty focusing when they're overheated. Long workdays in hot environments will cause some workers to experience chronic heat exhaustion, high blood pressure, kidney damage, or heart muscle damage. The bill requires the government to set heat protection standards and for employers to assess heat risk, make plans to protect workers from that risk by following the standard, and implement those plans to prevent injury and death. I want to close by thanking OFL President Laura Walton and her whole team for the excellent work they put into this bill. And with that, I turn it over to you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Last May, we launched the Heat is On campaign to raise the alarm on a growing and dangerous reality in Ontario, heat stress in our workplaces. At the time, the Government of Canada reported Toronto's temperature index at 27 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius with the humidex. And that wasn't an anomaly. We saw record-breaking heat across the province. Then came November, with temperatures again in the 20s. Winter didn't even really show up. The climate crisis isn't just coming, it's already here. And workers are on the front lines. That's why we stood proudly with Ontario NDP MPP Peter Tabuns when he introduced the Heat Stress Act, a private member's bill to implement a real and enforceable heat protection standard for Ontario workers. And it's why that we're pleased to be standing here today co-sponsoring this with them again today. We're back. And the fact is, workers are still waiting for the protections that they should already have in place. Environment Canada is forecasting a 70 to 90% chance of above normal temperatures for much of Ontario between now and July. Meanwhile, this government hasn't lifted a finger to protect the people working outdoors, in our classrooms, in our factories, in long-term care, or in the back of sweltering restaurants. There isn't air conditioning. There is not heat relief. There is no plan. Today, we are here to deliver thousands of petitions signed by workers across Ontario, calling on this government to do its job and pass legislation. Because this isn't just about comfort, it's about safety. It's about the right to come home from work alive and well. And it is not lost on us that we're putting this forward just mere days before the very first Injured Workers' Day in Ontario. We are to be originally joined by members of CUPE 416, outside workers, that were going to bring information to us, not just about what it feels like to be a person working on the roads in Toronto, but also from the perspective of our paramedics that we proudly represent. The fact is, heat stress is impacting everyone in many different ways. We know the science, we have the legislation. What is missing is the political will of this government to actually protect workers. While they delay, workers are still out there, on job sites, in school portables, in warehouses, facing the consequences of the inaction every single day. That's why it's so important to directly hear from those on the front lines, and we encourage workers across Ontario to reach out to us and tell us your story. The dangers of heat stress are not hypothetical. Let me be clear. This legislation isn't just for workers. It's for everyone in Ontario. As we mentioned last year, our working conditions are the living, learning, and caregiving conditions across this province. From overheated classrooms and long-term care homes to sweltering kitchens and blazing job sites, heat is a growing hazard that we can no longer ignore. And that's why we're turning up the pressure on this government again. Pass the Heat Stress Act without delay. This is just the beginning. Workers in Ontario will be continuing not only to collect signatures, but to collect information and education in their communities, because we know that this isn't a partisan issue. It's about protecting people, and it's long overdue. While workers keep showing up, this government keeps repeating that they're working for workers and protecting Ontario. It's time that they actually protect the very people who are working in Ontario. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
And before we go to questions, France, if we could
hand these over to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Annie, je m'appelle France Gélina, je suis la députée de Nickel-Belt et je suis très fière d'être ici avec moi pour appuyer le projet de loi qui a été présenté par mon collègue, le député Peter Tabuns, ainsi que mes deux collègues députés Chandra Pasma et députée Lise Vaugeois. Nous sommes aujourd'hui avec la présidente de l'Organisation du travail de l'Ontario. La crise climatique, c'est une réalité. C'est une réalité qui fait de nos étés et même automne et printemps des situations où est-ce qu'il fait trop chaud pour qu'un travailleur, une travailleuse soit capable de bien faire son travail d'une façon où est-ce que, oui, le travail va être fait, mais qu'il n'y aura pas des effets négatifs sur sa santé et parfois même sur sa vie. Que l'on parle des gens qui travaillent dans les maisons de soins de longue durée, dans nos restaurants, qui travaillent pour améliorer nos routes à l'intérieur et à l'extérieur. On voit de plus en plus de cas de gens qui font face à un problème de santé directement relié au fait qu'ils doivent travailler dans des températures trop chaudes. Il y a des solutions. Le projet de loi qui a été mis de l'avant amène des solutions pour protéger nos travailleurs. On doit avoir des milieux de travail sains, des milieux de travail qui respectent les travailleurs, les travailleuses et qui nous permet de faire le travail d'une façon qui est sécuritaire pour tous. C'est ce qu'on demande au gouvernement de faire, c'est ce que le projet de loi demande de faire et c'est ce qui doit être fait. On est disponible pour les questions en français ou en anglais. Merci.
Thank you, France. Are there any questions? Excellent. Please.
Hi, I'm Kate Allen from the Toronto Star. I have a question for you, Mr. Tabuns.
Yeah.
So 2 summers ago, the government proposed the standalone heat stress regulation. I'm wondering what your understanding of the status of that is now.
My understanding is that we're still looking at voluntary standards and information. Part of what drove all of this was the concern in the labor movement that, in fact, we weren't getting regulations that had the force of law so that workers were getting the protection they deserved. We brought forward this bill last year. Unfortunately, we had an unnecessary election that threw off the schedule for debate of this bill. We're reintroducing it. As the OFL says, we're quite prepared to work with the government to get this passed very quickly so that workers can get the statutory, the legal protection they need.
And that proposed regulation would have made standards mandatory, not voluntary. Is that proposed regulation dead? Do you know?
As far as we know, yes, it is dead. Unless, Laura?
Yeah, no, part of it doesn't have any current teeth, right? There's a lot. If you remember last year when we brought this forward and the same question came forward, the Minister of Labour at the time said, well, it's just common sense and folks have the right to refuse. The fact is that leaving something up to common sense is killing people. And the right to refuse often comes with a price of losing your job or being reprimanded for actually exercising your rights. Well, that is illegal. The fact is that we can't turn a blind eye that it happens. And so what we need is, rather than, mere suggestions and regulations, we need things in place that will actually ensure that workers are being, kept cool. And it begins even with our own public buildings and in our own public work sites. This is a chance for this government to really show that they can be working for workers. Let's make this happen. Heat stress is a real thing. It's impacting people every day, and it needs to be strengthened beyond what we see now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Did you want to do a picture?
Sure. Why not?